Good morning. We're learning Tractate Shabbos, page 147, Kuf Mem Zayin, chapter 22, and the name of the chapter is Chavit, a cask. I will start from the top. Amenar Talisa b'Shabbos, one who shakes out his cloak, his talis on the Shabbos to clean it. Chayav Chatos is liable to Chatos. Rashi tells us that he's doing so. In doing so, he makes the garment cleaner and performs a tolda of labor, of laundering, melabin, laundering, whitening. This was disputed, and he says only laundering is only when it's wet. So they have to say that there was dew on the talis, on this cloak, and therefore it was some sort of laundering. So we said this only as regards new garments. Good morning, but when it comes to old garments, with regard to old ones, late lon bo, we have no objection to shaking them out. So newer garment, it's a problem. Atike with old ones, there's no problem. Furthermore, we said only as regards to black garments. But we have no objection when it comes to red ones or white ones. The copy the lie when the above applies when the owner of the garment is particular about it. But if he generally wears these clothes even when they have not been shaken out, he does not transgress the Shabbos if he indeed shakes them. It once happened that Ula came to the city of Pumbedisa, and he saw the scholars, the rabbis, were shaking out their coats on the Shabbos. Ula said, the rabbis are desecrating the Shabbos. Rav Yehuda said to Rabbi Yehuda was the dean. He said to the scholars, "Nefutzele ba'ape, shake your coats out to his face. Pay no mind to Ula's objection. Anan loikapdinan midi, but we are not particular about this at all. In our locale, we have no compunctions. We have no compunctions about wearing an unshaken cloak. I guess no reservations. We couldn't care less on a weekday, and therefore, if we need to shake these garments to beautify them on Shabbos, we commit no transgressions." If you look at note 4, it says, as washing a garment in water is without question a violation of laundry. Washing it with water, without question, violation of laundry. The shaking of a cloak is classified as such only if the owner considers the act an important improvement to the garment. Who is considered important improvement to the garment by shaking it off or going like this? It's not a major improvement to the garment. Good morning. You would wear the cloak without it being shaken. Then shaking it on Shabbos to make the garment look its finest in honor of the day is not deemed a significant enough to qualify as laundering. Shaking the garment is not laundering. That's really what Rabbi Yehuda was pointing out to Ula. In the right column it says Abaye was once standing before Rav Yosef, his teacher. Amar lei, Rav Yosef said to him, "Avli kumtai, give me my cap." Chozudika tolo alei. So Abaye saw that there was some dew, some moisture that had settled upon the hat, upon the cap. Ovo kamechasel misvole. So he was reluctant to give it to him. Omar le, Rav Yosef perceived what was happening, that Abaye doesn't want to give it because it has dew on top of the cap. Omar le nefutz shedei anan leichabdinan midi. Shake it out, throw off the dew. We're not particular at all about wearing a garment that has dew on it. Therefore, it's no big deal. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ha'yotze b'talis mekupez munach al kesef b'Shabbos. If one goes out from a private to public domain on Shabbos with a folded cloak resting on his shoulder, he has his talis folded on his shoulder, he's not wearing it, there's no eruv, he's going from private to public domain. Chayav chatos, is liable to chatos. Clothing merchants who go out into a public domain with cloak folded and resting on their shoulders on Shabbos, they're also liable to chatos. And this applies not just to clothing merchants, not only to clothing merchants, rather it applies also kol odom. Any person who goes out from private to public domain on Shabbos with a folded garment is a problem. The reason why they mentioned the garment clothing merchants, because that's the way they usually go out with their product. Sometimes they would put it on their shoulder. Maybe they want to fold it, whatever it is. It's more common for them. It's their practice to go out in this manner. So 147a2, left column. Likewise, a shopkeeper who goes out into a public domain with coins tied to his garment, so he takes his wallet with him. Chayav chatos is liable to a sin offering. This now doesn't just apply to a shopkeeper. It applies to every person. Because just the reason why they mention shopkeeper, because it was a common practice for storekeepers to go out in this manner. The Brisa concludes, but what is ratonim? It says in number 14, raton is the name of a place. Tosfos suggests that the word is related to ratonim, those who hurry, those who are in a hurry. Or say harotzim, those who run. So either those who run or it's the name of a place. It says they may go out with kerchiefs folded on their shoulders. Why? Not only the people from Raton, or not only those who are in a hurry, however, these people had the custom, the practice to go out this way, to go out with a kerchief on their shoulder. Amar Rav Yehuda said, "Masa be'okinus b'noisha Rabbi Elazar ben Hurkinus." It was told of Hurkinus, son of Rabbi Elazar ben Hurkinus. So meaning the son was called after the grandfather. So Rabbi Elazar had a father, Hurkinus. His son, he called his son also Hurkinus. So one time his son, Hurkinus, that he once went out with a kerchief on his shoulder into a public domain on Shabbos. However, as a protective measure, he saw to it that there was a thread wrapped around his finger through which he could hold onto the kerchief and ensure it would not fall. When the matter came before the sages, they said, even if there had been no thread wrapped around his finger, his act still would have been permissible. A ruling is handed down in connection with this Brisa. The law is that even if there is no thread wrapped around one's finger, it is permissible to walk in a public domain with a kerchief folded on one's shoulders. The Gemara returns to discuss the various ways a cloak may be worn on the Shabbos. Ula ikra levei Asi Barhini. Ula once visited the academy of Asi Barhini. Bomine, that student inquired of him, Ma'u lasas mazah b'Shabbos. What of making? Is it okay to make a gutter on the Shabbos? Is this permissible or not? What do they mean by a gutter? It says in content, a gutter refers to a particular way of wearing a cloak, not the gutter that they have on roofs. Particular way of wearing a cloak. Omar lehu, so he replied to them, Hachi Omar Rabbi Eli, this is what Rabbi Eli said, you should not do it on Shabbat. It is forbidden to make a gutter on the Shabbos. This type of wearing, particular way of wearing, you should not do it on Shabbos. So the Gemara wants to know, what is this particular way of wearing? My Marzev, Amar Rabbi Zera Kisai Bavlioso. Gutters refers to Babylonian pockets. The Gemara relates how an Amiro attempted to clarify this, the particulars of this law. Rabbi Yirmiyah was once sitting before Rabbi Zera, attempting to learn from him the types of gutters that were impermissible to make on the Shabbos. Omar Lei, Rabbi Yirmiyah formed a certain kind of ruffle in his cloak, in his garments. Omar Lei, Achimai, if one folds it this way, what is the law? Omar Lei also. Rabbi Zera replied to him that it is forbidden. V'achimai, Rabbi Yirmiyah then formed a different kind of ruffle and asked him, and this, what about this one? What is the law? Omar Lei also. Rabbi Zera also told him that it's forbidden. Amar of Papa. So what is the general rule? Nekot ha'iklola b'yodcho, take this general rule in your hand. Kol adaita de'lechanufei, anytime one makes a fold with the intent of gathering up the garment, also the act is forbidden. Kol de'lisnoes, and any time one makes a fold simply to make the garment more attractive, sherei, the act is permissible. So if you're doing it for lisnoes, which means to be attractive, the act is permissible. If you're doing it for gathering up the garment, what does it mean gathering up the garment? He wishes the ruffle to remain permanent feature of the garment. You want it to look a certain way all the time. At that point, that would be a problem. If you're just doing it to beautify yourself, that's fine. To look more attractive, okay. But if you're doing it for permanent situation, to leave the ruffle in that specific way, it's prohibited. Kiod Rav Shisha Berei, the Rav Idi, an example of the latter being the case of Rav Shisha, the son of Rav Idi, Misnobis Din Aver, who used to beautify his cloak by arranging its fold after he had donned it. We will move to 147a3, the left column. The Gemara above stated that one may not traverse a public domain with a folded cloak on his shoulders. The Gemara now relates an incident pertaining to this. Also, Avdimi Omar, when Avdimi came from the land of Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, one time Rabbi went out into a field on the Shabbos, and the two sides of his cloak were resting on his shoulders. Yoshua ben Zeus, the son of Rabbi Meir, father-in-law, said to Rabbi, for an act of this sort, did Rabbi Meir not hold one liable to chatas? Question mark. In other words, he's telling him, you're liable to chatas. Was Rabbi Meir really that exacting on the matter? Shilshel Rabbi Talisa, nevertheless, he accepted Rabbi Yeshua's words, and Rabbi then unfurled his cloak from upon his shoulders, and probably wore it. It says in 25, as a practical matter, the permissibility of traversing a public domain in these varying modes of dress depends upon the prevalent custom of dress in a given locale. In Rabbi's time and in his locale, this was not deemed a normative way to wear a cloak. In other times or locales, however, the same may not apply.
So if it wasn't the normal way of wearing it, then that meant it was okay, or it meant it was, you're chayav chatas. I don't understand.
So when Yeshua ben Zeus comes to Rebbe,
Yeah.
he says that Rabbi Meir would require sin offering for this.
Not. It says,
I know, but he says it in a question mark.
oh,
Did Rabbi Meir not hold one liable to chatos for this one?
yeah.
See, so
Then he.
so right away, what did he do? He unfurled it.
So he put the talis on right or whatever.
Yeah.
It was. Okay, fine. Now I got it.
So what does it mean? That was not the custom to go out like this.
Right. So therefore, it was carrying. Okay.
Also, when Ravin came from the land of Israel to Yeshua ben Zeus, who accosted Rebbe.
No, in fact, it was not Rabbi Yeshua ben Zera's.
Right, that's what they're saying. It wasn't Rabbi Yeshua ben Zeus.
Right.
Ela Yeshua ben Kafusai, or Chason shel Rabbi Akiva. Rather, it was Yeshua ben Kafusai, the son-in-law of Rabbi Akiva.
Okay.
Furthermore, this person did not report a ruling in the name of Rabbi Meir's father, in the name of Rabbi Meir. So rather, he said, for an act of this sort, did Rabbi Akiva not hold one liable to chatas? Question mark. Omar lei, digdig Rabbi Akiva at kan. So the whole story is the same, it's just changing from the name of Rabbi Meir to the name of Rabbi Akiva.
Okay.
Shir shel Rabbi Talison, Rabbi listened to Yeshua ben Kafusai, and he unruffled his talis, his cloak. He also of Shmuel bar Yehuda Amarav. When Shmuel bar Yehuda came from the land of Israel to Babylonia, he said, Nishal Itmar, it was reported that Rabbi was asked about wearing one's cloak in this manner. It was not so that Rabbi himself had been wearing his cloak this way. So the story take another shift, and he says that it wasn't really Rabbi doing it. Rabbi was just asked about a scenario a scenario like this. If someone goes out with talis, what was the talis on two sides, and the two sides of the cloak were resting on his shoulders. So we're starting the Mishnah in the bottom of 147.83. The Mishnah now discusses bathing and drying oneself on Shabbos. One who bathes in the water of a cave, or in the waters of the Tiberias hot springs, and dried himself even with 10 towels, may not carry the towels home in his hand. So don't bring the towels back home. However, 10 people may dry themselves with one towel, drying their face, their hands, and their feet. And they may carry the towel home in their hands. It says in 31, since many people are involved together, if one of them forgets the towel, that the towel may not be wrung out on the Shabbos, he will undoubtedly be reminded by the others. The ban against carrying the towel home therefore does not apply. So the biggest issue from this we see, the issue of carrying the towel home is that you might wring it out. Not the actual carrying, the issue is more of like it's a wet towel and you might be tempted to wring it out.
So
Squeeze the water out.
If we happen to be able to go to the mikveh, take the towel out. I mean, if we didn't have an Erev.
We have an Erev, yeah. They may carry the towel home in their hands. Machine. On the Shabbos, we may apply oil to the skin and massage the body by hand. Avali misamlin, but we may not massage vigorously. V'lo misgorin, and we may not scrape the skin. Ein yodin lekudima, and we may not go down to Kudima river on the Shabbos. I once saw a guy in a sauna in Israel that he was staying there for a long time, and then he would scrape off his skin. I guess it's many layers of skin, so part of it would just with a special brush. So it says you can't do it on Shabbos. We may not scrape the skin. Ein yodin lekurdima. We may not go down to Kurdima River on the Shabbos. What's the problem with the Kurdima River?
I don't know.
The Gemara will explain soon what's the issue with it. No, may we take an emetic to induce vomiting. Okay, that's an interesting one. A substance that can induce vomiting is a contraction of three Aramaic words: apik, tefi, zun. Take out the food. Okay. Vein ma'atzvin es hakoten. We may not straighten the limbs of an infant. If one of the vertebrae became dislocated, it may not be reset on the Shabbos, so long as it is not a dire emergency. This must wait until the next day. The Mishnah continues, no, may we set a broken bone. If one's hand or foot became dislocated, he may not massage them with cold water. But he may bathe according to his usual manner, and if he is healed, thereby he is healed. The Gemara analyzes the first part of the Mishnah. Ketoni Meimar. The Mishnah teaches the case of cave waters. Dumya de Meitveria, together with and thus comparable to the case of the waters of Tiberias, hot springs. This leads to the following analogy. Ma mei Tiberia chamin, just as the waters of Tiberias. The water of Tiberia, hot springs are hot. By the way, still this very day in Tiberia, right by close to the Rabbi Menashe site, tomb, there is a place called Chamei Tiberia till this very day. So just as the waters of Tiberias hot springs are hot, so it must be that the cave waters about which the Mishnah speaks about are hot as well. Haroichetz, with reference to those cave waters, the Mishnah uses the expression one who bathed in them. The avad ein lechatchila lo. This indicates that yes, after the fact of his having bathed and dried himself, he may not carry the towels. Now the towel is wet. But in the first place, he ought not to have bathed in these waters. Miklal, it says in 41, had the Mishnah held bathing in these waters to be permissible, it ought to have begun by stating one may bathe. It doesn't say that one may bathe. Tosfos states that after the fact, phraseology indicating that the act is in the first place impermissible. It's also. It's focused particularly on the case of bathing in hot cave waters. As mentioned above, note 27, bathing in Tiberian hot springs is entirely permitted. Indeed, the only reason the case of the Tiberian hot springs was included in the Mishnah was to convey that the immediately following case, cave waters, involved water that is hot as well. Usually cave waters would be cold, right?
Right, like in the Arizals.
Yeah. So it says the avad aroich has the avad in lechatchila lo, one who bathed in them, but the avad after the fact. Lechatchila to begin with, he should not do it. Miklal, this in turn implies, going to 147b1, the lishtatev kol gufay. Afilu lechatchila shapir dami, that if he does not actually immerse in the cave waters, but merely rinses, showers his whole body with them, even initially it is fine for him to do this. So having isolated the Mishnah's position on this point, the Gemara asks Mani, who then is the author of our Mishnah? Which Tana allows rinsing one's body with heated water on Shabbos? The Gemara replies, Rabbi Shimon. Our Mishnah reflects the view of Rabbi Shimon the Tanya. It was taught in a Braisa, lo yishtatef odom bein v'chamim mitzonim. One may not rinse his entire body with either hot or cold water on Shabbos. Divrei Rabbi Meir. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon Mati. Rabbi Shimon says you can do it. Rabbi Shimon, however, permits rinsing the entire body with either hot water that was heated before the Shabbos or cold water. Rabbi Uda also mutar. Rinsing entire body with hot water is forbidden, but rinsing it with cold water is permitted. Our Mishnah reflects Rabbi Shimon's view. I think this very day, to begin with, it's better not to. And Shabbos, if you do it with cold water. The Gemara elaborates on a further section of the Mishnah. The Mishnah stated one who bathed and dried himself even with 10 towels may not carry the towels home in his hand. What does that mean? To say that the towels are not really wet. Even though the towels are not wet, because if you dry yourself with 10 towels, you dry your head a little bit with one towel, then second towel, and third towel, these towels are not wet, but you still should not take it home because you might still wring it out. That's the concern, right? So he says, and the first part of the Mishnah informs us of a novelty. And the second part of the Mishnah that tells us that even if 10 people use one towel, they are allowed to take it home because one would remind the other not to wring it out. And the first part teaches us a novelty. In addition, that even these towels which do not have much water in them at all, the person may not bring them home. Because he's a lone person, he's by himself, and he might forget. Or he might come to wring it out. The Seifa, and the latter part of the Mishnah also teaches us a novelty. Even these people who between them have much water upon their bodies, so the towel is probably drenched. Kevan the Rabim Ninu, since they are a group of people, Mad Kiradoda, they will remind one another not to wring it out, and therefore you're allowed to take it home. But with one person, even though it's 10 towels, you shouldn't take it home. Tanu Rabbanon mistape god valuntis umanicha v'chaloin. If the towel is wet, there's a concern that you might wring it out on Shabbos. If it's not wet, there's no problem. But it tells you, the chiddush of the Gemara is that even if the towel is very little, it's wet only tiny bit, there's still a concern that you might wring it out. No, you can carry a towel. You can carry a towel like a scarf. If you put the scarf around your head, you can put a scarf around your neck. It becomes like it's almost like it's a garment. So there's ways to do it. There's permissible ways to carry a towel on Shabbos because you're carrying it like clothing. You put it. You're allowed to wear a scarf on Shabbos. Allowed to wear a scarf. So you put the towel around your neck, or you put a towel on your head, protect your ears in places like in places in the north. It could be very useful. Anyhow, there is ways of doing it in a permissible way. Tanu Rabbon mistapek odom baluntis umanicha b'chalon. A person may dry himself with a towel and leave it in the bathhouse windows. V'lo imsereno l'ulyorin, but he may not give it to the bathhouse attendant. Why? Because we have a concern that they will do the same thing. They are also suspected to wringing the towels on the Shabbos. He may dry himself even with only one towel. So Rabbi Shimon is very lenient because he says even if the towel is wet, you're allowed to take it home. It says in number 8, even though the towel may be quite wet, Rabbi Shimon is not concerned that the person will forget and wring it out. Clearly, Rabbi Shimon speaks of a case where the malacha of carrying is not an issue. So the fact that he writes that you can carry it with your hand, it has to be that there is an eruv, and therefore you can carry it home. An eruv had been made in town. So when you have an eruv, even though I gave you an option to do it, I mentioned an option to do it without the eruv. But even if you have an eruv, there's a question whether you can take it home if it's very wet. So Rabbi Shimon says you can take it home. The rabbi says you shouldn't take it home. The only time you can take it home it's when you have we have 10 people. One would remind the other not to do it. So, what is the law? What is the halacha? As a practical matter, is a lone person permitted to carry the towel home or not? Rabbi Shimon Harabi. Here, Rabbi Shimon. Here is Rabbi Shimon. Here is Rabbi. Shmuel, Rabbi Yochanan. Here is Shmuel. Here is Rabbi Yochanan. All these sages have permitted the practice. It is to be allowed. The Gemara proceeds to demonstrate that each of these sages indeed takes such a position. Rabbi Shimon. As for Rabbi Shimon Adamoron, it's clear from the Brisa we just quoted that he permits a lone person to carry his towel home. Rabbi Detanya, going to 147b2, Rabbi Detanya, and Rabbi agrees to this too, for it was taught in a Brisa. Amar Rabbi said, when we were studying Torah under Rabbi Shimon in the city of Tekoa, we would carry oil and towels from courtyard to roof, umigag lekarpaf, and from roof to karpaf. It says in number 9, the karpaf is an enclosed area, not designated for residential purpose. So we would we would carry oil and towels from courtyard to roof, and from roof to this enclosure, karpaf, and until we would reach the spring in which we would bathe. It shows that they carried the oil, but they didn't do it directly. The Gemara cites evidence concerning the next of the sages listed, Shmuel. It can be shown that Shmuel permits a lone person to carry his wet towel. A person may dry himself with a towel and then carry it home in his hand. Obviously, it has to be a place with an eruv, but the concern of wringing it out is not there. The law is that a person may dry himself with a towel and then carry it home in his hand. The Gemara challenges this last point. Did Rabbi Yochanan really say this? Rabbi Yochanan says halacha follows the Mishnah, an anonymous Mishnah. Usanan, we learned the following anonymous teaching in our Mishnah. We just said that if one bathed and dried himself even with 10 towels, lo yavim be'odo, may not carry the towels home in his hand. So how can you say that Rabbi Yochanan says you're allowed to take it home? That particular teaching Rabbi Yochanan attributes to Ben Chachinai. So it wasn't his own teaching. The Gemara says another teaching reported by Rabbi Chia in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Chia bar Rabba said in the following in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the bathhouse attendants may bring the women's towel to the bathhouse on the Shabbos, provided that the attendants cover their heads and most of their bodies with the towels while walking with them. Sachinso. As for someone wearing a sachinso, what is sachinso? It says in 15, it's a kind of kerchief, usually wrapped over the head, as one leaves the bathhouse to protect one's wet hair from the elements. So almost like a hoodie. Okay. He must tie the two ends of the garments together below so that it will not fall off his head, and then he will pick it up and he will walk with it, and then we'll have an issue of carrying. Below in this concept it says lemato. What is lemato? Means below. In this context means below the shoulders. Rava told the citizens of Mechoiza, name of a place, when you bring garments to the soldiers on the Shabbos, let the ends of the garments hang down below your shoulders. The end of the garments hang down below your shoulders. It says in 18, when Gentile troops were stationed in a town, the local residents were often pressed into their service. This sometimes involves involved bringing the soldiers' clothing to them through a public domain. Rava told the town folk that if they were required to do this on Shabbos, they should not carry the clothing folded back upon their shoulders, a manner of carrying garments. Rather, they should don the cloaks as if they were wearing them. That is, they should put the cloaks over their heads and let the ends of the garments hang down below their shoulders, and that's how they would transfer the clothing on Shabbos to those soldiers. When you bring the garments to the soldiers, let the ends of the garments hang down below your shoulders. Sochin u'mashmashin, going to 147b3. Sochin u'mashmashin, on Shabbos we may apply oil to the skin and massage the body by hand. Tanu Rabbon sochin u'mashmashin b'nei mayim b'Shabbos. We may apply oil to the skin and massage the intestinal area on the Shabbos. So just as long as one does not do it the way he usually does it on a weekday. So how should they do it? How then should one do it? What qualifies as performing a massage in a different way than usual? Let him first rub in the oil and afterwards massage the skin. Rabbi Yochanan said, let him rub the oil and massage the skin simultaneously. But we may not massage vigorously. It is forbidden to stand in the mud of Dymosis River. Why? Because it invigorates and heals the body. Maybe we can find this river, invigorates and heals the body. 23. The river warms the body and its salty mud is therapeutic.
Sounds good. Ready to go.
Because you're not supposed to do healing on Shabbos.
Okay, we don't do it on Shabbos. Sunday is good.
Yeah, but you have to find it. Where is this river?
I don't know.
Dymosis River. It says a certain river whose waters were especially salty.
Good.
The river was apparently located near the Jordan city of Emoaos. Okay, Jordan city. The days in which the Dymosis River possesses this therapeutic power, all in all, are 21 days. There's only 21 days that it's therapeutic. And the holiday of Shavuos is included in this count. Presumably, Rav means that Shavuos marks either the beginning or the end of the season in which standing in the river can be especially healthful. The Gemara therefore questions. I heard there's a place somewhere in the West Coast that people go there for therapeutic, like in waters.
Yeah, I know where it is. I passed by. It's on. It's by Port Charlotte, on the Tamiami Trail. It has a sign there. About a lot of religious Jews used to go there.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah, my parents knew about it. I think they might have gone there once or twice.
Like a big pool or something that people go into the water.
I drove by, when I was going to my parents or something, when they were there.
So it's not something that is a stranger. It's
not strange. It's a sign.
I'm saying it's. You can see it even till this very day.
And we also have a very famous hot springs is in West Virginia, where FDR died. It's a very famous resort.
So Atzeres Lai Giso or Lai Giso. Does Shavuos mark this side, the beginning of the 21-day period for the therapeutic water, or does it mark that side the end of the 21 days? Tashma Amar Shmuel Kulu Shakyone Mediv Chovat Zalto Malu. All these kinds of healing drinks are at their best from Passover until Shavuos. I think it says also that the rain that comes from Pesach to Shavuos is the very good rain to get wet from.
Over there, I don't know here. You get rain all the time.
Perhaps there, with regard to the therapeutic drinks mentioned by Shmuel, it is the case that the cooler the weather of the world is, the more effective the drinks are. But here, in the case of the mud, of the dymosis, the healing comes on account of the vapors rising from the hot earth.
You know, I heard the same thing about the Dead Sea. You know, that a doctor said for your skin, the air of the by there.
It's the vapors, not the actual water. So it may be that when the climate of the world is warmer, the mud is more effective.
So good, we're good now. See, global warming.
The Gemara relates an Agadic tradition pertaining to the Dymosis River. Omar Rabbi Chelbo said, Chamro de Frugiso, di Frugiso, Umayo de Diomeses, the wine of Frugiso, and the water of Diomeses, Kipchu Aseros HaShvotim Yisrael, deprived Israel of the 10 tribes. What does it mean? It says in 29, the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel were exiled by Assyria, and in effect became lost from the Jewish people.
We just had the problem.
You did?
Yeah.
No, it's back again. It's fine now.
It's back to Rome, he says. Yeah.
Rabbi Menashe Amitay once came to that region, the area of Pugisa and the Demesis, read from the Torah scroll. We have issues with the Wi-Fi, so. Anyhow, so he wanted to read, he was called, finally he came from this place, from Purgiso. He came back from this region of Purgiso and Demesis, the places of pleasures, and his Torah was forgotten. And when he came back, then he gave him Aliyah. In those days, when you get Aliyah to the Torah,
You read it yourself.
you have to read yourself. So also Kol Mikri B'Sifro, he came to read from the Torah. Bo Lemikra Chodesh Hazeh Lochem, and that parsha was a Chodesh Hazeh Lochem, Rosh Chodesh. It was Rosh Chodesh, or Chodesh Hazeh Lochem. Instead of saying a Chodesh, he said Omar HaCheresh Oyo Libam. Instead, he said, was their heart silent? Their heart was silent. Bo Rabbonon Rachem Alei, realizing that their colleagues had forgotten his Torah knowledge, rabbis saw that Rabbi Lozo ben Arach forgot his Torah. The sages beseeched God, they davened to Hashem for him, to have mercy upon him. And his Torah knowledge returned to him. So the story goes that his wife told him, I don't know if they mention it over here, but his wife told him that don't worry about, the student will follow you. You don't have to, you can go. You can go and the student will follow you. Koheles Rabbo, in addition, tells an expanded version of the story. It relates to Rabbi Lozo ben Arach, was one of the 5 principal students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai during the Roman siege of Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yochanan died. The students reestablished their academy in the city of Yavne. However, Rabbi Lozo ben Arach did not follow them. Instead, he settled in the beautiful town of Amoas, near the pleasing water of the Dymesis, and waited for other students to join him there. As Rabbi Lozo was the most exceptional of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's students, he became convinced that it was not befitting his honor to follow them. Instead, the other student must come to him. In the end, the other students remained in Yavne, and Rabbi Lozo stayed in Amos until, isolated and alone, he began to forget the Torah he had learned. he did not actually forget so much that he no longer knew how to read. Rather, he unintentionally mispronounced the words, mistaking the Dalet Zayin Chaf for the similar letters Reish Yud Beis. His colleagues.
No internet now. You know what you can do? I know what you can do. This. You go to setup.
Okay, we're back. It's fine. It seems like we're on now. Let's see if it's gonna last. Sorry for this. Anyhow, so we were holding at 147 before. We ended off saying that they davened for him, and Rabbi Elazar ben Arach learning. He remembered his learning. By that Nan and the story concerning Rabbi Elazar ben Arach illustrated, which we learned in the following Mishnah. Ben Uri says, exile yourself to a place of Torah. Do not presume to say that the Torah will come after you. For it is your colleagues who will cause it to remain with you. Do not rely on your own understanding. His name was Rabbi Nechemia, not Neurai. Not Rabbi Neurai. So why did they say Rabbi Neurai? Some say it was not Rabbi Nechemia, not Neurai, rather it was Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. And why then is he called Rabbi Neurai? Because he illuminated the eyes of the sages in matters of halacha. Next part is referring to the Mishnah that we learned we may not scrape the skin. The Gemara quotes the next part of the Mishnah. So Tanu Rabban Megiras b'Shabbos, we may not scrape the skin with a strigel on the Shabbos. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Leimer Imaraglum Lo Miluchloch is betitu b'tzoya. If his feet were dirty, was soiled with mud or excrement, Ger Kedako, he may scrape his skin as he usually does on the weekday. And need not be concerned that this violates any prohibition.
Just trying to get clean.
Right. Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda the Chaspa, the mother of Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, made a silver strigel, especially for use on Shabbos. And Yodan the Koldima,